2004, when it was getting to the point where something needed to be looked at.
It was like having a conversation with someone who was distracted.
Oh, are you about to get on the stage? Okay, well, Mom's got Alzheimer's. We'll talk to you later. It's like, ah!
This is my mom, Kathy Neff. She was born in Holland, Michigan in 1943. The oldest sister of 6, mother of 3, grandmother of 5, 2 human, 3 furry, and wife of 1. She was born for adventure, always the first one up and always the last one to bed. Her motto, God, family, and friends. She would do anything for a stranger and often did. She loved to document life's big events. In her home, you can find shelves and shelves of photo albums, almost as if she knew she would need help remembering later on in life. She was always sending a care package or checking in on her little old ladies, a born caregiver. So when she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, we were all blown away and left with the question, well, who's going to take care of us now? Our first Christmas dinner of frozen pizza and Gatorade really drove it home that we had a rough future ahead of us. Our rock, our mama, our Gigi was changing, and we had better learn how to change with her. It's taken over a decade to even start to understand this terrible disease. But what we have learned, we'd like to share.
This is Katie. She's a middle-aged mother of 2 Shih Tzus, born and raised in Jerome, Idaho.
And this is Steve. He's a middle-aged father of 2 Shih Tzus, born and raised in Sauk City, Wisconsin.
And together,
we're married to each other.
And this is Kevin. Kevin is married to Irene. They have 1 real human child, 2 dog children, and Kevin was born and raised in Southern California.
In the last 2 decades, we, the makers of this film, have lost or are losing loved ones to this horrible disease. We don't have the scientific know-how to Aaron Brockovich this thing, but we do have some suggestions on how to make day-to-day living just a little more bearable.
Alzheimer's affects people differently. Currently, there are an estimated 47.5 million people worldwide affected by dementia, and there are 7.7 million new cases every year.
According to the Alzheimer's Association, more than 15 million Americans provide unpaid care for people with Alzheimer's or dementia. That's an estimated 18.2 billion hours of care valued at about $230 billion.
That's a lot of care done for a lot of people with little to no knowledge of how to do it. We're going to equip ourselves with the tools to manage, maintain, and provide love to our loved ones. Katie and I met in Chicago, Illinois. For the past decade, we've made a living doing improvisation and sketch comedy.
Through the famed Second City, we have been able to hone our skills and share it with humanity. But in the midst of taking over the world one joke at a time, I received the devastating news that my biggest fan and supporter was experiencing some dementia-like symptoms.
So let's rewind. What is improv? Improv is the art of making it up right on the spot.
We all improvise every day, whether it be picking out what to wear or if we should throw a stapler at our boss's head. The only difference is the kind we do is on stage, and sometimes people pay us to do it.
Lucky us. But ultimately, it's the idea of taking someone's suggestion, agreeing to the reality that they created, and moving along to make up a scene.
There are some very basic rules to improv.
Number 1, say yes and. By saying yes and agreeing with our partner, the action moves forward and we have somewhere to go. A no is a direct stop of all action.
2, don't ask questions. Asking questions puts the burden on the other person you are interacting with.
Number 3, go with the flow. Don't force your own agenda. More likely than not, what you are trying to make happen never actually will. If you just go with the flow, who knows, it might just circle back around to you.
And 4, listen. Don't be so caught up in your own world or ideas that you don't take the time to really hear the person you are with. You might miss something very, very important.
So let's start with the idea of yes and. Yes and is simply saying, yes, you are Superman. You know what? And I would like to take a ride over Manhattan on your back.
Rather than saying, no, you're not Superman. You're some old creepy guy with no real powers. What fun is that? We've just denied the reality of the scene, and where does that leave us but in an awkward stalemate?
Yes, and I mean, that's what it is. It's verbalizing the idea of going to their space. It's joining them.
So, is he really cute?
I'm pretty cute. Yeah, look, here we go. There we go. Have this one.
What we're doing is we're trying to learn yes and not no. And when you don't know for sure what's going on in somebody's life, like dementia setting in, you can get a little bit frustrated at times. There isn't any question about that. But I try to remember what Katie tells me, that it's going to the yes. And if Kathy wants to do something or says something that doesn't make sense, I can go there with her. I can go there.
Much like you do when you interact with an Alzheimer's or dementia patient, we need to join them in their reality and say yes and to where they are mentally.
As long as it doesn't impose any immediate harm to them, what can it hurt to say, yeah, we're all going to the ranch today and we're going to wrangle up some cattle. We better get a nap before we head out.
The next phase we can focus on is don't ask questions. In improvisation, we don't want to ask questions because it places a burden on the person we're in the scene with.
For somebody with dementia, it takes more effort on the part of their communication partner to join them. Because, in a normal conversation, we're meeting halfway. You've got your experience, I've got mine, and we're meeting halfway in objective reality to try to figure out, how we're going to spend this time together. But with somebody with dementia or with Alzheimer's, the communication partner has got to go all the way. The other person doesn't have the ability to meet them halfway, so they've got to join them.
And so why do we expect them to know these answers to these questions? And why do we make them feel bad if they don't know? It's important to just love them where they're at and know that they're there somewhere.
So when we met Steve and Katie, we realized we had a commonality with our mothers with the Alzheimer's dementia. And I did realize that Irene and I were actually going with the flow when we were working with our mother. She liked to play cards or watch TV, and we would do those things with her to make her happy.
Just like persons with dementia, we don't want to burden someone with answering questions when sometimes they can barely form words. It is much better to make statements.
It's true. Tell them how your day is going. Tell them what you're going to do with them today.
Next, we will work on go with the flow. In theatrical improvisation, we use go with the flow to find where the action is going. We try not to enter a scene with any preconceived notions about what is going to happen.
If I am sure this scene is going to be about carrot farmers, but my partner makes us Olympic gymnasts, I have to let go of my idea and join her reality, or it simply won't work.
Most of the time, I will try to go with the flow of the thought or the action that the person wants to do.
You have to. You absolutely have to. If they're not ready for a bath, it's not time for the bath because you're just going to cause a big negative roll. So you can sometimes change the way they're feeling that day with, laughter and hugs and kisses, and sometimes you can't. So you go with the flow. You don't try to change it and make it your way. It's their way.
What hasn't worked with people is a lack of flexibility.
And I just kind of go along with what they're saying, which is really hard at first, but I think my dad taught me that. I just realized that it doesn't really matter if they don't know who I am, as long as they know that they are safe. That's the most important thing, and that they are loved.
We cannot begin our day determined about the course of what is going to happen. Something they once might have loved, like going for a walk in the park, might be the last thing they want to do. We can't force them to go for a walk because we feel like it. Let them direct us to what they would like to do. Then just go with the flow. Lastly, let's remember to listen. In improv comedy, we must listen at all times so we can react to anything that is said. A single line can inform our entire world.
The same can be said for persons with dementia. Sometimes the words don't match the situation, but if we listen with all of ourselves, we can better understand what our loved ones are meaning.
It can make the difference between a day of crying and a day full of laughter.
When I say yes and joining them in their space, they're not always in the happiest place, They can be depressed, they can be sad, upset, angry, frustrated. That's very common, those emotions and those feelings. So as much as we've talked about joining them in their space and saying yes and going with them, it's equally important to redirect them in the space where they're at, but try to change the channel and try to get them away from feeling, those negative things and feeling happy feelings, like changing the channel, having something where you can engage them and get them, this is like next level stuff, but getting them to join you in a place that you can agree with but is happy for them.
So in review, some of our quick improv rules are: say yes and, don't ask questions, go with the flow, and listen. We know that these methods are not going to cure dementia and Alzheimer's, but perhaps we can start by having a few laughs along the way.
If we start saying yes and instead of no but, life for everyone will be a little easier. Remember, if we don't laugh, we may just cry away the last special moments we have with our mothers, our fathers, our heroes.
Happiness, laughter, but mostly love. Easy.
Let's go for a fly over Manhattan.